Hey, what's up? Tyson France with Motion Revolver here. Thanks a lot for purchasing the Winter Games Element project. We'll dive right in to show you how everything works. Once you've opened the zip, you've obviously already located the tutorials. So here in the project files folder is where you will find all of the working projects for the template. There are 3 different options. There's event results, lower thirds, and a metal tracker graphic as well. So we'll start here with the event results, and we'll open that up. All right. Once we open up the project, and again, I'm using After Effects CC 2018. That is currently the latest version of After Effects, but it will work with any version of After Effects after 2018. In the project window here, we have 3 folders. They're all labeled in order, steps 1 through 3. So step 1 is where we import our assets. Anything that we're going to use in the project gets imported into this folder here so that we know where it is and we can easily find it. Step 2 is where we edit the appearance. So if we open up this global appearance composition, you'll see that we have a representation of our event title graphic and all of the customization options here in the customization panel. So we want to make sure that our effects control panel is open. It may not be in this exact location on your screen, but if you don't see it, you just want to go to Window and make sure that the effects control window has a little check mark next to it. If it doesn't, then you'll need to activate it. Because this is the easiest way to make customizations and edits to these graphics. You could do it in the timeline as well by highlighting the layer and then hitting the E key to show the attributes, but then you have to worry about twirling these open, and it's just a lot easier to work in the effects control window. So what we'll do here is we'll start at the top at title panel color. And this color is associated with the title panel. So it's also associated with pretty much any other instance of that color. You can see here on the time/score panel as well. So if we click on that swatch and have our effects control window open, we can see there's a gradient ramp here. And if we click on these colors, we can change the colors to anything we want. So if we wanted the look to be more of a bluish tint, actually, I'm going to color pick that, and then I'm going to set that a little lower, maybe a little bit more saturation. So as you can see now, we've changed the overall look of the entire panel just by updating that color right there. The athlete name panel is self-explanatory. That's the athlete's name. So let's say we wanted that to be, well, I don't know, we'll make it something crazy so we can see the difference here. So we've updated that now. I don't know why you would want your graphics to look like that, but just showing you how these updates are made. So we're actually going to revert back to that so we can at least look at these graphics. Revert back to the original so that they're not hurting our eyes. All right, I'm actually going to revert back to the original event title panel as well. All right, there we go. So now we're back to the original. The subpanel color is the subtitle panel right there. So if we wanted that to be a different color, we can change that as well. And then the footer panel, which is an optional panel, we can turn that on or off in the main comp. I'll show you how to do that in a second. But if we wanted the footer panel to be a different color, we could do that as well. So there we go. Okay. As far as the text goes, if we want the text to be a different color, we actually have to update each layer individually inside of their respective comps. Sounds like a little bit more work, but it's actually, it leaves the customization a little bit more flexible when you can just customize the color of each layer. Then we'll move on to the metal mode here, and if we click on this little metal icon, you'll see that there's only one option here, and that's metal event mode. So this is a checkbox which we can toggle on and off. Right now we have metal event mode toggled on. And what metal event mode is in the Olympics, there are certain events there that are metal events, and there's certain events that are not metal events. So sometimes they're just qualifying events where medals are not handed out to the athletes. And then there are obviously final events where the top 3 athletes are rewarded with their medals. So if you're scoring a medal event, you want to check this box, because then the top 3 athletes, it'll show you gold, silver, and bronze. But if it's a non-medal event, we uncheck this box. And as you can see, this is just a regular scoreboard, basically, just showing you the qualifying without any medals associated with that. But if we go ahead and turn medal mode back on, we can also update the colors of the medals. These are a pretty good representation, I think, of gold, silver, and bronze. But say, for example, you wanted your bronze to be more orangey or something, you could do that. So as you can see, we made our bronze a little bit more orange tinted, but we'll revert back to the original. So you can change the color of the medals. And I think for the global appearance, that pretty much covers everything. So we're going to move on to the step 3 folder, which is where we build our event results. So we'll open that up. And as you can see, we have our event results screen. With a transparent background. So this comp can be placed on top of any footage or images or video. I'm actually going to import, let me see, I'm just going to grab a piece of footage just so that we can kind of show, forget which one it is. I think it's this one. That's pretty good. Just going to grab a piece of footage here to show you how this works in a second. But as we can see, we have a general representation of what the overall graphic looks like. We have to input all of this information, obviously. And the way we do that is we can either twirl open the setup folder to open up each position. As you can see, there are 10 positions here to reflect the 10 positions shown on the screen. So we can either open up each one of these comps individually, or we can just go down to our timeline and double click on the layer, and that will open up the composition as well. So I've opened up position 1. We can scroll through here, scrub through and show you what the animation looks like. And all of these green layers are essentially the layers that we can customize. So we currently have metal mode, we have metal event mode enabled, so we're seeing our metal colors. We can change the position if we want here, which likely wouldn't be the case, since you're probably not going to change the overall positions. But we can update the country code here. So let's just say, for example, this is the United States. Then we can change the flag icon to pretty much anything that we want. So right now we have the generic world checked. If we click on, actually I should take a step back here. So if I click on the flag control, this controls every flag in the graphic. So we can essentially select from up to 190 countries that are currently available in this feature. So if we click on the flag control and we have the the effect control panel open, we can scroll through and see that every single country pretty much that competes in the Olympics is available in this list. All we have to do is find it alphabetically. So if we're highlighting a United States athlete, all we have to do is uncheck this box, and then the United States is actually at the top of the list, so we just check that box, and now we have the US flag there. Now, if you don't like the position of the flag, you could just click on this flag control and then move the orange box around. We can move this down if we want, or we can move it over. We could scale it. If we want it to be smaller, we can, let's scale it down to 100%. Obviously, it's a lot smaller, but we can do stuff like that where it's not overlapping as much. So if we just go back here to the event results, we can kind of see what that looks like. If but I'm going to revert back to the original. All right. And then so we'll just type in a new athlete name there. And then this time/score feature, this is obviously you can change this to anything you want. It doesn't even have to be a number really, but we can either input a time. So say for example this was a timed event where the event took an hour and 15 seconds and the winning time was something like that. We can go back and see what that looks like. So we can see it's all been updated. Or if this is more of a scored event, like I think figure skating, I believe, is a scored event. So let's just say, I'm not exactly sure how figure skating is scored. I know it's on up to a total of 10 points, but I think there's more than one judge, so I think they combine the scores. So let's just say, for example, our athlete here had a score of 89.8, and that was the winning score. So we can do it that way as well. And if you don't like how small that looks, we can always click on the layer and increase the size of the text, or we can just scale it up. I like to change the size of the text so I'm not affecting the layer itself. But say we can pump that up to 90, and then if we wanted it to be sitting a little bit lower, we can just click on the layer and hit the A key to change the anchor point and just slide that down slightly. And now we have a much larger score. So we'll revert back to the original there. And I'm not going to spend too much time going too far into the rest of these positions because they all work the same. But as I was saying earlier, for example, if you wanted to change the color of the text, any of these text layers, the color can be updated. Say, for example, you wanted this USA to be more gold since this is a gold event. We could do that. And now it's actually gold. So you could do things like that if you wish. I think that pretty much covers that. I'm actually going to revert everything else back to the original here. Okay. And again, I'll quickly go into obviously positions 2 and 3 are the same as 1 because those are the only event mode positions. So if I go to number 4, even if we have event mode enabled, there is no medal mode, I should say. There is no medal for positions 4 through 10. So there's not going to be any color features really in here for medals. But again, they all work the exact same way. They're all set up to animate onto the screen the same way. So no real reason to go too much further into that. Now, for this event title, as you can see, we have up to 10 positions. But if our event only had, say, 5 positions, we could just disable 6 through 10, and now we have only 5. But then, of course, now it looks a little bit weird because our bottom panel here is floating all the way at the bottom. So all we need to do there is just click on the footer panel, hit the A key to adjust the anchor point, and then slide it up to wherever we'd like it to go. Say like right there. All right, and then it still animates from behind the main graphic, as you can see. So it slides down. But now, of course, it still looks weird because our graphic is currently hovering towards the top of the screen, and that just looks odd. So what we can do then is click on our master control layer, and then you can see there's a little red box that's highlighted on the screen. We just click and drag on that, and we can move our event panel down towards the center of the screen a little bit more. And then everything still animates on the way it should. It's just repositioned to wherever we need it. And then, of course, all of this text is customizable. I don't think I showed you that. All these green layers are our customizable text layer. And on the options layer inside of the composition, we can turn on and off this bottom panel. So if we don't want the footer panel, we uncheck this box and it goes away. And it looks like I have to update that, which I will fix for you. So when you uncheck that box, both the text and the panel will disappear. All right, so how do we place this on top of footage or a background? Well, all we need to do is create a new comp. We'll just call it new comp. I'll make it 30 seconds long. This is obviously a 4K composition. That's how large our event results box is. So in our new comp, I'm just going to click and drag our event results composition in. So this is a self-contained comp. And then we will grab our footage. And I think this is 720 footage, so I'm going to have to scale that way up. Let's find a good frame here just to kind of show you a good point of reference. That works. Whoops. Missed. Okay, that's pretty good. So as you can see, we can place this graphic on top of any kind of footage. We can even, let's say let's blur it a little bit just to sort of make the background a little bit, maybe not that much. All right, there we go. So I'm just actually going to freeze this frame. What is it? Layer, time. I always forget where time is. There it is. So I'm going to freeze the frame on this footage. And I think what I will quickly do is I will render this so that you can see what this looks like on top of a nice image or some footage. All right, so we have this rendered here. And as you can see, this is what it looks like on top of a nice background plate. And then these graphics are set up to actually pad out for 30 seconds. So that's about how long you can leave it on the screen. You could make the composition as longer simply by extending the duration of each comp. But all right, we're going to delete all this and revert back to the original. So once you've customized everything you need to update in the event panel, since there are so many events and so many competitions in the Olympics, clearly you're probably going to need more of these graphics. Now, the way this project is set up, instead of duplicating this composition, the way to create more additional graphics such as this is we're actually going to close this and we're going to open up our project folder. And let's say, for example, once we've customized this, that event was for, I don't know, let's say bobsled. All right. If we need to create one for, let's say, figure skating, we would just duplicate that. So we can duplicate these files, the actual .aep After Effects file. We can duplicate these as many times as we possibly need. So it's completely infinite and 100% scalable. So then you would just open that up and you can have multiple. You could say like figure skating 1 and 2 and so on. So you can create as many of these as you need. I think that pretty much covers everything for the event results. So go ahead and check out the rest of the tutorials. All right, so now that we've covered the event results, we're actually going to skip lower thirds for now and do that in the next tutorial. So we'll concentrate on the metal tracker. So I'll double click on that project file to open it. And in the project window, we'll see the same 3 steps, step 1, 2, and 3. Step 1's where we import our assets that we're going to need for the project, whether it's video or images or logos, whatever the case may be. And then step 2 is where we edit the global appearance. If you've already watched the event results tutorial, this is pretty much the exact same situation, except there's just a few different features, or I should say a few less features, since there aren't actual there's no reason to enable a metal event mode. But in here, just to go through this quickly, the title panel color updates pretty much anything you see in this color. So if I change this to something crazy just so that we can see what the difference is, you can see that changes pretty much the look of everything. We could update both of these colors. So if I wanted this to be something wild like this, make it look like that, that is absolutely hideous. So we'll revert back to the original. And then the country panel, that's these panels here. So let's say we wanted something like a red color like that. That's how we can do that. Revert back to the original. The sub panel color is this underlaying panel here. So if we click on the matte black to color and change that, we can update that color. And then the footer panel, this bottom panel here, we can change the colors of that as well. And then the metal colors, obviously, these metals, gold, silver, and bronze, we can update the colors of if we wish. As far as the text goes, we can change the color of the text in each individual comp as needed. But that's pretty much the global appearance comp, so we'll close that and move on to step 3, which is where our main graphic resides. We open that up and we see pretty much a representation of the same thing we were just looking at, but this is where all of the magic happens. So in this composition, these 3 green layers here are all of our customizable text within this comp. So we can change the text for all of this. In the options layer, we have one option, which is to toggle on and off this bottom panel. So if I turn that off, I may have to update the, I have to update this real quick. And fix this with an expression. Okay. So now, when we toggle on and off the footer panel option, we can see that disappears or appears. So if we want this panel, we can leave it on. If we want it off, we can turn it off. All right. So to update each individual country, you can see we have 1 through 10. We don't have to have a total of 10. We can, if we only wanted to highlight the top 5 countries, we could just select these bottom 5 layers and turn them off. And then we could click on this footer panel, hit the A key to show the anchor point, and then slide this up to the position that we need. And then, of course, that looks a little weird because now our graphic is sitting in the top of the screen, so we want to move that down towards the center. All we have to do is click on the master control, which highlights a little red box. We can slide that down. Whoops. Looks like I have to update that now as well. Metal panel. Let's see if that works. Yeah, okay. All right, so as you can see, we can move the metal panel down towards the center of the screen again. So we can have as many countries listed here as we want. Go ahead and move that back down to where it was. All right. And then one other thing to point out in this composition is where the transition is. So currently this animates onto the screen and then sits here for 10 seconds. So we want to keep these 2 purple layers aligned. So you want to highlight them both when moving one. So if you wanted this graphic to stay on the screen for, say, 15 seconds, we can move that back to 15 seconds. And then as you can see, it will animate off the screen. It sort of does this flash scale thing. I think I'm actually going to update that to 75 so it's not as drastic. All right, there we go. Put that back at 10 seconds. So now the transition occurs at 10 seconds. All right, now as far as customizing each individual country layer, we can do that one of 2 ways. We can either twirl open the setup folder, which shows all 10 comps, and we can open up each one of these comps, or we can go to our timeline and double click on each layer, and that will open up the comp as well. So as you can see, we have our first country here. We probably don't want to change the position number. We could if we wanted to, but you know, everything's listed 1 through 10, so I can't imagine a situation where you would want to change the position number, but if you want to update that, the feature is available. To change the flag, we just click on the flag control, and if we have our effects control window open here, if you don't, just go to window and make sure this little checkbox is enabled. As you can see, if we scroll through, we have, I think it's 190 plus countries available to choose from. Pretty much every country that competes in the Olympics is available. So let's say, for example, we have the United Kingdom is currently number 1 in the standings. We just deactivate the world layer, which is on top here. So we'll uncheck that box and then scroll down to find the United Kingdom and enable that box. And then we can see we have our Union Jack here. So if we click on the flag control, if we don't like the way that looks, we can center the flag a little bit better, or we can scale it down. Just hit the S key to show the scale attribute. If we wanted it to be, I don't know, much smaller, we can, maybe not that small. We can scale it down and make it fit within the panel, and then we can move it over like that. Let's just see what that looks like real quick. There you go. But we're going to revert that flag back to the original. All right, and we will change the name to Great Britain, or you can change it to United Kingdom, whichever, or England. Couldn't even do England. So many names for one country. I love it. Okay, and then our 3 numbers here are denoted by gold, silver, and bronze, and then we have our total. So let's say, for example, Great Britain currently has 14 gold, they have 5 silver, and maybe 10 bronze. Maybe make this a little easier to do the math, right? So this is 25. Great Britain currently has a total of 25 medals. And there we go. So pretty much all we do is just go through and update each individual position the same way we did England here. And they all work the exact same way, so I'm not going to really spend any time going through that, as that would be pretty redundant. Revert this back to the world flag. All right. Okay, everything's back to the original. I think that pretty much covers everything within the After Effects project. Now, obviously, with there being many dates and many days throughout the process of the Olympics, you're probably going to need more than one metal tracker graphic. So instead of duplicating this composition, the way these projects are set up, you'll need to actually duplicate the After Effects project file itself. So, for example, this metal tracker, if we change this to say day 1, let's say we've customized the graphic and we have our results entered for day 1. If we wanted to update this for day 2, we could just duplicate these as many times as we need. So as you can see, it's infinitely expandable. We just duplicate the After Effects project for as many different metal trackers as we want to have. But I will revert that back to the original. And I think that pretty much covers everything for the metal tracker. So we will now move on to the lower third tutorial. Alright, so now we're going to cover the process of customizing the lower third. If you haven't already watched the tutorials for the event results and the metal tracker, I highly recommend you do so, just because there's quite a bit of information in there that sort of carries over to the lower third graphic. But we'll open that project up, and then in the project window, we'll see that we have 3 folders here, steps 1 through 3, labeled in order. So in step 1 is where we just import any of the information or any of the files that we need as far as footage or logos or images, so that we know where to grab it when we need it. Then step 2 is where we customize the global appearance. So if we open that up, we can see a representation of what our lower third looks like. Now, if you've already watched the other 2 tutorials, you'll have a pretty good idea of what's going on in here. Although there is a slightly different customization process as far as enabling this metal graphic. As far as the colors go, we can change the title panel here by just clicking on this, and I'll change it to something pretty crazy so we can easily see it. All right, that did not update. So this is why we go through this process, because we need to make sure that, let's see, where is our title panel? Title panel. Okay, we do not have our gradient length. So what I'm going to do is real quickly just going to go ahead and link our gradient to that graphic. Okay, let's see. Let's make sure that did the trick. So now if we change the color, there we go. We can see we have updated colors. Can change the bottom color as well. All right. As far as the main panel goes, hopefully there aren't any other linking issues. We can change the color of the main panel. And then the sub panel, which is this bottom panel here, if we wanted this to be a different color, we could do so there. So that's all great. We can also change the color of our metals. So only gold is represented here, but if we wanted to change the color of our metals, we can do so right there. Not sure why you would want to, but you could. And I think that pretty much covers it for the global customization. We can also change the flag and everything in the main comp, so we'll go ahead and do that now. Moving on to step 3, we'll open that up. All right. All right, so in the main composition, we can see we have our transition on, just sort of flashes on the screen. We also have a transition off layer here at 10 seconds. So wherever we position this transition off layer is where the transition will occur. So if we want our graphics to stay on the screen for 15 seconds, we just move this layer back to 15 seconds. All right. So we'll start here at the top, the options layer, which is where we can customize the look of the graphic. So right now we have our title panel and our sub panel enabled. If we didn't want a title panel, we can turn that off. And if we didn't want a sub panel, we could turn that off as well for a much cleaner looking and much simpler lower third graphic. We can even customize whether or not, say for example, we're showing an athlete here who just won a medal. We can toggle these medals off. So if we wanted a silver medal, we can do that. If we wanted a bronze medal, we can do that as well. Or we don't have to have a medal at all. We can turn them all off. But we'll leave gold on for now. Then the flag control. We currently have the United States enabled. If we didn't want a flag, we could just turn that off, and then we don't have a flag there at all. We can even turn the gold medal off. And now we have just a completely clean lower third with no additional information in the way. We're going to go ahead and re-enable those again. And as you can see in this effects control window, we have options for, I think it's 190 countries, pretty much all countries that compete in the Olympics. So say, for example, we wanted this to be a Swedish flag. We can turn that on. And if we don't like the position of the flag, we can click on our flag control and we can move it around. We can even update the scale of it if we want it to be a little smaller. And then move it up in the middle of the panel there. We can do stuff like that. We can even rotate it. So if we want the flag to be a little bit on an angle, we can do stuff like that. We'll revert back to the original here. I think, where did I have that? Was it 225 or 250? Yeah, we'll leave it at 225. All right. And then all 4 of these green layers here are our customizable green layers, or customizable text layers. So we can update this text to be whatever we want. We can change this to be athlete name, so on and so forth. If we only wanted a single line lower third, we could just turn the secondary line off and click on the main line, hit the A key to show the anchor point, and then move that down into the middle of the panel if we wish. And then we can even increase the size of the text if that's what we wanted to do. But we will revert back to the original. All right. I think that pretty much covers everything as far as the customization of the graphic itself. Now, the way the lower third project differs from the event results and the metal tracker graphic is that if we want to create more of these graphics, we don't have to duplicate the After Effects project itself. We can actually duplicate the lower third. So if we had our graphic customized, so say for example we wanted this graphic to be, this guy's name was Mike Smith. Just about the most American name you could possibly think of, right? All right, so we can name this Mike Smith. You can even put an underscore in there. If we needed another graphic, we could just duplicate it, highlight it, and hit the Command D key, or click on it and edit duplicate. And then we can change this to say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a different name. So let's say Mario Ricci, right? Mario Ricci is an Italian. So we'll click on our flag control, turn the United States off, scroll down here to Italy. Italy, right there. Oh, I think we still have Sweden checked. I have to uncheck Sweden. Where's Sweden? There we go. Uncheck Sweden. All right, so now we have Mario Ricci, who just won the gold medal. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to go back here. I'm actually going to revert back to our original. Actually, I just can delete this. But as you can see, without getting too sidetracked here, we can duplicate this composition as many times as we need, and the updates will stay. So now we have an American athlete, we have an Italian athlete. So the project is 100% infinitely expandable. So I'm actually going to revert back to the original here. Keep going. All right, so I think that pretty much covers it for the lower third graphic, and I think that mostly covers all features in the project. So I don't think I missed anything, but if you have any questions or comments or concerns, we can always be reached on our Video Hive page or through motionrevolver.com. Once again, thanks for purchasing the Winter Games elements. I'm Tyson France, and good luck with your project. Hey, what's up? Tyson France with a Motion Revolver quick tip here. Just wanted to cover an issue that comes up somewhat often in some of the After Effects projects that contain 4K compositions. There are instances, obviously, where you're not going to require the 4K resolution. And sometimes as an After Effects author, creating a completely different version with standard HD resolution compositions is a fairly large undertaking. So typically what I do as an author is sometimes I will leave the project set up for 4K rendering and not actually create separate HD compositions to render directly from. So this can sometimes create confusion as to how to render a standard HD resolution clip if you aren't already familiar with how the render queue can work. So what I have in the project window here is a 4K composition. As you can see here, it's I'll bring up the composition settings. It's 3840 by 2160 pixels large, and that is standard 4K 16:9 resolution. So if we have this 4K composition, but we want to render it in a standard HD 1920 by 1080 resolution, industry standard 1080p resolution, what we can do is we can take our 4K composition and drop it into our render queue. And then where it says output module, we just click on the blue text here, whatever preset is set here. It doesn't really matter. We just click on this text, which brings up the output module settings. And what we want to do is resize this composition to be standard HD size. So we'll click the little resize button here, and we can click and drag this or click and enter something to be whatever resolution we want. Or we can click on this little custom setting here, which has a bunch of presets, which is kind of handy, and typically you're going to want to use one of these in here. So usually what you need is already set up as a preset. So if we want standard 1080, obviously you can see there's also 720 and a bunch of other standard settings here, but we'll select HDTV 1080 29.97, which would be the NTSC standard. Leave the resize quality to high. And as you can see now, it's going to automatically resize while it's rendering. It's going to resize this 4K 3840 by 2160 comp down to 1920 by 1080. And we've locked the aspect ratio here, so it's going to it's going to retain that 16:9 aspect ratio. And we can click OK, and this is going to render this composition with those settings that we just created. But clearly, if we have a bunch of 4K compositions that we want to render at 1080, we don't want to have to continue, setting this or changing the settings for each instance that's queued up to render. So what we can do is actually create a custom preset from this. So what we'll do, we'll actually revert back here. We'll just revert back to what we had here, which is the lossless setting. We'll click on this again, and then we'll make our settings again. HDTV 1080. Okay, that's all great. Everything looks good. We'll click OK. Now what we can do is click on this little arrow here, and we can click Make Template. And what this is going to do is bring up the Output Module Templates dialog box, which will allow us to save these settings that we just set. Resize is set to 1920 by 1080, high quality. Final size will be 1920 by 1080, obviously. So what we can do is, where it says Untitled 1 here, we can rename this to whatever you want it to be, but something like 4K to 1080p. So we click OK, and now this output module is saved in our presets. So we have this set to 4K to 1080p. If we have another composition in our project window that we want to render with these same settings, all we have to do is change it to 4K to 1080p. Now, if while we're changing this, I'll revert back to lossless. If while we're changing this, we hold down the command, or I believe on a PC, I believe command is control. I'm not sure of the PC setting, but on a Mac, if you hold down command and click the new setting, that After Effects will save that setting as the default. So now, if we have a third composition that we drop in, it automatically has that set. So let's say, for example, we have 10 compositions that we need to down convert from 4K to 1080. If we grab all of these compositions and drag them into the render queue, as you can see, they all have retained that preset because we held down control while we were selecting the new preset that we created. So as you can see, this sort of automates the process very well. This also works with any resolution. Say, for example, you're working with a 3K resolution composition or a 2K resolution comp that you need to downsize. You can change the settings to fit whatever needs that you require. But that's pretty much it. That's how you down convert resolutions to smaller resolutions. I hope you found it useful. If you have any comments or questions or concerns, feel free to contact us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. But thanks a lot for watching. Alright, so you've purchased a project that is built in 4K, but you don't want to render it in 4K resolution. You'd like to downsize it to possibly HD, 1080p, something like that. And you don't want to go through and change the attributes for every single project. Well, you can do that in After Effects in the render queue, or you can use Adobe Media Encoder, which is what I kind of like to do. So I have a project open here that is built in 4K. As you can see, the compositions are 3840 by 2160 4K resolution. So I'm just going to grab a few of these comps and drag them into the timeline. Or not the timeline. I'm going to drag them into the render queue. And if you have an Adobe Cloud subscription, or if you have Adobe Media Encoder installed on your computer, if you have all of these comps checked in your render queue, you can click the Q and AME button. And what that will do is it will transfer any checked composition that you have in your render queue over to Adobe Media Encoder. It opens up the window, and it already has them queued. Now, chances are it probably changed your render settings from After Effects. Right now, I did have it set to be rendered as QuickTimes in Apple ProRes 422 codec, but that's changed it over to H.264 in Adobe Media Encoder. But no worries, that's very easily fixable. So let's say, for example, we wanted to keep that as a QuickTime. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of the layers and make sure all the layers are highlighted so that you change the attributes for all of them. And first thing we'll change here is the H.264. You'll get a dialog that says you're going to be changing this setting for all instances in the render queue. Just click OK. This will take a second to boot up the export settings. And this is where we can change everything. So we want to change H.264 to QuickTime. And we want to change the video codec to, let's say, standard professional format, such as Apple ProRes 422. And then you see it's changed it to 720 by 480. Well, we don't want that. We can click Match Source so that it retains the 4K, or we can uncheck this match property, and then we can leave this little link checked and then change this to 1920, which will automatically change it to 1920 by 1080. So now what we've done, we can also set some other things like render at maximum depth and use maximum render quality, things like that if that's what we want to do. Change it to 16-bit as well if we want a little bit more detail. Click OK. And it has updated all of those settings that we just set it to. We can also change the render location to wherever we want all of these files to be rendered to. So that's as simple as it gets. You can take 4K compositions from inside of After Effects, queue them up in Adobe Media Encoder, and highlight all of the instances, and then change all of the attributes all at once. Very simple. To down convert 4K to HD or any other format that you would like to render at. That's pretty much it. Happy rendering.
Subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button. Click the bell button and enjoy the latest uploads from our channel.